Hello and good evening to you. Welcome. It is 90.3 Nigeria Info and Hearing Port Harcourt, the number one talk news and sport radio station. 90.3 Nigeria Info and Hearing Port Harcourt time dial. It is about 10 minutes gone past 4 p.m. and you're listening to another edition of Canvas the Niger Delta Roundtable, reaching you on this dial. Great to be here. It's another Wednesday and time for us to discuss the progressive development of the Niger Delta region. As I've said very, very many times, the Niger Delta region is not just a geographical land space, but a people with dreams, hopes and aspirations. And initiatives of this nature, like Canvas on Air, give us all an opportunity to exchange ideas, rub minds and draw a blueprint with a view to actualizing the much-desired Niger Delta dream. And today, this fine Wednesday, we're doing that once again. Now, be reminded that Canvas the Niger Delta Roundtable, the program is sponsored by the operator of the NNPC SPDC Total Energies Ajib joint venture, the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, headquartered here in Port Harcourt. Now, on the show today, the topic is education ICT opportunities for Nigerian youths. Now, last week on Canvas, we agreed that the world today is in the grip of the digital revolution. Nigeria, like someone in a vortex, is caught in the shift from mechanical and analog electronic technology to digital electronics, which began in the latter half of the 20th century with the adaptation and proliferation of digital computers. In several places in Nigeria, it's easy to see in play youths' fascination with information and communication technology, ICT for short. Our computer villages dot our country. SPDC also recently inaugurated the 3D Animation Academy in Port Harcourt. Then SNEPCO inaugurated the ICT Center at the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, Efurun in Delta State. The SPDC donated the hydrodynamic equipment that simulates offshore marine situations to the Rivers State University Center of Excellence in Marine and Offshore Engineering, Port Harcourt. There is also the incoming ultra-modern Shell-donated Oloibiri Hospital campus in Bayelsa State. There are some of today's, or rather these are some of today's examples of ICT critically in our everyday world, and these are severally driven by young people. We live in a digital world where things are designed to be more easily accessible for the general population. On Canvas Tonight today, we'll continue to look into ICT and the digital revolution to ask how are our young people getting to grips or coming to terms with this revolution. Are youths utilizing the many opportunities that experts have shown us are available? And what direction should the Niger Delta take to ensure we carve a niche for ourselves in this digital revolution? Which way does technology promote education among our Niger Delta youths? And these and other related matters we're discussing on today's edition of Canvas on Air. Now, joining me for today's conversation to discuss education ICT opportunities for Nigerian youths is Emeka Obiwulu. Emeka, good evening to you. You're welcome to Canvas on Air.
Thank you very much, Daya.
Now, Emeka Obiwulu is the founder and chief executive officer of the Offshore Lab Nigeria. That's TOL. TOL is an integrated service company focused on the end-to-end delivery of local capacity development of projects and innovative solutions to the oil and gas, defense and education sectors of Nigeria. TOL was the project company that delivered the recently inaugurated SNEPCO-donated 100-seater ICT center at the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, Efurun in Delta State. Emeka was at the center of this project. My guest, Emeka, has 2 decades of project delivery and oil and gas experience across 4 continents. He holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, a master's degree in oil and gas engineering from the Robert Gordon University, Scotland in the UK. He's a member of both the Association of Project Managers UK and of Association for Black and Minority Ethnic Engineers UK. He's competently skilled. Emeka has led previous roles as project director, project manager, subsea lead engineer, and field engineer, diving, and subsea project engineer. We'll go for a quick break right now, and when we return, we delve right into the topic of today's conversation on Canvas Tonight. Please stay with us. Right back in a bit.
In our land, it is the joy of every parent to see their children succeed.
I never wanted my story to be different. That is why I ventured into the plastic recycling business. But as I struggled to grow my business, I discovered the Shell Livewire program, and so I applied.
The winner of the Maiden Outstanding Achievement Prize for Shell Livewire's Top 10 Innovators is...
And that's how I won $10,000, including mentorship to help grow my business. Today, we have 27 employees on our payroll. I have progressed from picking plastic to creating wealth. My name is Yolo Bukamo Smith, CEO of the Rabicon Plastics Nigeria and the winner of the Maiden Outstanding Achievement Prize for Shell Livewire's Top 10 Innovators.
At Shell, we believe in empowering youths to live their dreams. That is why, along with our venture partners, NNPC, Total, and Ajib, we started Shell Livewire program in Nigeria in 2003. And since then, we've empowered over 7,000 youths and over 4,000 businesses in the Niger Delta because we care. Connect with us at shell.com.ng and on Twitter at Shell_Nigeria. Hashtag Shell Cares.
Oh, shall we do? No cry again. No cry, my pikin. Sleep, sweet, oh, share.
More mothers at Obiwulu community and its environs in River State cheerfully come home with their babies thanks to the Community Health Insurance Scheme at the Obiwulu Cottage Hospital, which has helped deliver more than 27,000 babies. Meanwhile, at the Ogbia community in Bayelsa State, Shell's Oliobiri Health Program helped to revamp the Kolo General Hospital, which now caters to over 4,000 patients. These and many more are made possible by Shell, along with its joint venture partners, NNPC, Total, and Ajib, because we care. Connect with us at shell.com.ng and on Twitter at Shell_Nigeria. Hashtag Shell Cares.
And welcome back. Still conversing Niger Delta Roundtable, brought to you by SPDC. I'm Dial. And if you're just joining, you're welcome once again. The matter we're discussing on the show today: education, ICT, opportunities for Nigerian youths. My guest on the show today is founder and CEO of the Offshore Lab, TOL, Emeka Obiwulu. Emeka, you're welcome once again.
Thank you once again for having me, Dio.
Feel free to join the conversation via WhatsApp on 0809-030-6416 with your comments or questions. The phone lines will be opened much later on. Also, remember, social media, your questions, commentaries, inquiries are also welcomed via Twitter at Canvas on Air and facebook.com/Canvas on Air. But before I take your comments or questions, I do have some questions for my guest, Emeka Obiwulu. Now, Emeka, over to you now. Let's start on this note. You know, when ICT, the term, is used more commonly, what comes to mind, I imagine, for a lot of people is smartphones, computers, laptops, social media, and the likes and such things. Is that what ICT is? Is that all there is to ICT? Smartphones, laptops, smart TVs, and all of these technological innovations that we find around us that are fascinating for young persons on social media and the rest of it. And talking about this digital revolution, what exactly is it?
All right, so I'll start with the question on ICT. You scratched the surface a bit there. Some of your definitions there are correct, but holistically speaking, ICT, or some people refer to it as the tech or IT, it basically stands for information and communication technology, but it refers to all communication technology that enables one to access, retrieve, store, and transmit information in digital format. So this includes everything from your internet to your computers, your mobile phones, software, your Microsoft Teams and Zoom, social media, all of that repertoire that allows you to manipulate information in digital format.
All right, so if that's what ICT is then, I mean, looking around us in Nigeria, well, especially here in the Niger Delta region, because that's our focus on Canvas and Air. I mean, you everywhere you turn to, you find every young person or not a young person, or almost every young person or not a young person, especially in the urban areas in the cities. In Port Harcourt here, for example, holding a smartphone. You have lots of secondary school students now with a smartphone. You have smart TVs many places. There's hardly any person these days, especially young persons, who are not on some social media platform or the other. If it's not Facebook, it's Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. You have lots more people who have internet access these days, a lot more people who have personal computers these days. So if we have this high level of proliferation of ICT, or access to ICT or the usage of it, especially among young Niger Deltans. Why then are we talking about a digital revolution and the need to get on board that revolution and what it will do for young Niger Deltans if we have a lot of them already accessing these ICT opportunities, as it were?
Okay, so that you had two questions originally, and I missed out on the second one, and you were asking what exactly is that digital revolution, and I think that's a good place to start. So when we're clear on what that is, then we can move on to that second phase of your question. The digital revolution, or what some refer to as the third industrial revolution, is that movement we made from mechanical and analog electronic technology to what we commonly refer to as digital technology. I had my idea of the digital revolution dates back to when I was growing up as a kid in the old Anambra State in Enugu. I was born in Enugu, grew up in a family of 7. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And some of my fondest memories come from that phase of my life, like I'm sure some of yours as well, Dio. And what I don't exactly think about with fondest of memories, my dad's black and silver radio. I don't know if you ever came across those red radios that had those knobs where you had that vertical dial that moved across a horizontal ledger of numbers. So, for instance, you were searching for 92.3, you had to turn the dial, and it just moved on. And if you skip past that, you had all of the high-pitched noises, overlapping frequencies exactly. So my dad had this radio, and he thought the right time to wake up 4:30 in the morning. He turned on that radio and he searched for all of his BBC channels and moved from channel to channel. And what that did was completely traumatize our sleep at that time, because you can imagine the combination of high-pitched alien noises booming through all of the rooms in the house. And this was every single day, apart from, of course, when he traveled. So my siblings and I always were like, geez, what do we do? Do we write a letter to this man? What do we do to get ourselves out of this? And then someday, this God-sent radio that came into my household that had sense, literally. It had sense. And you had to just push a button, and you were into the radio channel or the radio station you wanted. So if you wanted 92.5, 92.3, you just have to push the dial. And all of that trauma suddenly left my house for good. So my thinking back and casting my mind back there, of course, the 4:30 waking up didn't go away. We still had that trauma of waking up very early with my dad. But all of that high pitch, trying to tune and trying to get that station with all of those high pitched noises, mechanically moving that dial, that's the analogy that completely and clearly defined that transition or that transformation and moving from digital revolution, as you called it, mechanically trying to manipulate this information to the point that you can digitally manipulate it. So that just casts the picture and paints a picture of what exactly we're talking about. That new radio, that God-sent radio, became my metaphor for digital technology that replaced the mechanical and electronic technology that we used before. And moving to that second bit of it, when you think about that second element of it, everywhere you look around you, like you rightly pointed out, whether you're moving a few decades ago, you'd move around with loads of wads of cash, and at the moment you don't need to do that. You have, if you don't want to, you move around with your ATM card, you have your mobile banking on your phone, you can make payments however you want to electronically. You had, a whole lot of other services running off your mobile phone as well. And you have your iPad, you have your computer, your meetings, some of your collaboration meetings you do on Zoom. So you have all around you affecting in your life, one way or the other, this digital revolution. You can hardly move away from it. You can hardly think about any facet of your life today that does not have to do with the digital revolution. Now, in the context you've asked the question, people still ask and say, we have to key more into this digital revolution, into the whole ICT house, and make the best of it. And a lot of times that we talk about that, we're talking about there's a little bit of a focus on industry, right? So when you look at today, you hardly pick up a newspaper, or you hardly go online, or hardly turn on your TV without seeing another company raising millions of dollars, without seeing news about fintech, without seeing investors coming into West Africa, Nigeria, Africa, etc. And these are all part of the digital transformation, and part of the digital transformation that makes us an ICT, that makes us question our participation in this transformation, in this whole revolution process. So when you look at the company, when you look at what's happening globally, or when you look at what's happening within Africa now, we have 7 unicorns. Unicorn, I mean companies that evaluated over $1 billion, and 5 of them are domiciled in Nigeria. And what that says is there's quite huge potential, fertile ground for that level of investment and that level of growth in Nigeria. But when you speak to any of the founders or the venture capitalists in these investments, what they will say to you, their biggest challenge or risk is actually talent or lack of it. So they have a big problem filling in the role to meet the exponential growth of all of what's going on in ICT, the space that they're going with fintech, the space that they're going with fast consumer moving goods, all of that. So that shortage and that slowness, for lack of a better word there, to actually get us to meet up with the pace of what the market demands, or what the whole big picture, especially which relates to the labor needs of the market at the moment, is what makes us question how quickly are we keying into this. What are we doing education-wise to catch up with the pace of this ICT and this digital revolution? And yeah.
So, Emeka, if I'm following your train of thought, I think what you're saying is, even though we have a lot of persons, young persons inclusive, using smartphones these days, and we've moved on from just plain high definition TVs. You have smart TVs in many homes these days, and you have a lot of access, a lot more penetration as far as internet access is concerned, and you have a lot more persons who don't move cash around in large volumes like they used to, and with all kinds of applications and devices, you can transfer money, you can recharge your phones, you can renew your subscriptions and all of that. It still doesn't account for much when it talks about industry, to borrow your expression, when it comes to the revolution, because we are simply consumers and not the ones who are producing or manufacturing. Am I following you thus far?
Largely, yes. When you talk about industry and the labor needs that we have, when you think about what we supply, we have about 500,000 to 600,000 graduates churned out into the labor market every year. And that's a completely saturated market with potential implications for our national development and security. And what you would have thought was there'd be strategies to actually harness the energy from this demographic and channel into where. Sorry, say again?
Okay, we'll come into what we need to challenge in a moment, or what we need to be harnessing as far as our potentials are concerned. But I'd like you to very clearly, specifically state, when you say that we need to key into more into this digital revolution, what exactly, in very clear terms, are you saying? Because it appears that we're already a part of the revolution with the myriad of examples that I've given, even that you've given already. So what specifically are we still lacking as far as keying into this revolution is concerned?
So from where we left off there, if we see it's the demands of our market, if we have our teeming population of unemployed youth upskilled adequately enough to be assimilated into the demands that the digital revolution market is creating, that is us starting to catch up with that race from an employment and labor point of view, from an upskilling and capacity point of view. So you have that potential, you have that population, you have that energy, and you have that level, very basic level of appreciation. So the fact that these guys use mobile phones and iPads doesn't translate to having a cybersecurity engineer. It doesn't translate to having a data analyst who can actually make sense of the big data and all of the information we have there. So when we have these guys in the market who say, these are the skill sets that we require, maturing in that space is actually creating sort of linkages between the labor needs and the curriculum development, for instance, in the university. which is sort of what the ICT project that we completed with Shell aims to do. So going specifically, I think those are the kind of solutions that when we actually embrace, we actually start catching up with the digital revolution on a par with most other developed nations, so that the benefits can be felt by the Nigerian youth and the youth of the Niger Delta as well, in very tangible terms like employment and entrepreneurship.
What are the factors that are inhibiting this linkage? Because as you and I think we agree on a couple of things, which is, for example, there is a proliferation, a high, maybe even a drastic increase as far as access to some of these ICT opportunities or gadgets or devices. So if that's the case, one wonders then why we are not naturally simply gravitating in the direction of the revolution. So something must be blocking the link somewhat. Something must be truncating that connection. What is it, or what are they?
Absolutely, we're on the same page on that. So for the sake of time, I'll pick on three, right? Firstly, we'll talk about access and exposure. And when you think about demographics as a country, it's quite lopsided different places. Exposure in some parts of the country is quite different from other parts of the country. So we have this initiative we launched this year called Junior Lab, where we try to get subjects across the primary school students, primary school pupils in disadvantaged areas, STEM subjects like robotics, programming, critical thinking, on a very basic introductory level. So the primary school in the locality where we implemented this project, Kingsway Womera, we had 25 very bright kids, boys and girls in there, and we started the engagement with them. They could answer questions on every other subject. We made it very interactive. But the moment I got a couple of them and asked them questions on, yes, can I have a volunteer who's seen a computer before so I can ask a question? None of the 25 of them had ever seen a computer or touched a computer. So that's completely different. You then see the disadvantage of that set, that a lot of kids in that formative age, that little bit of initiative and spark that comes there comes from that exposure. You go to, it's a global village, and the kids they are competing with in every other part of the world, been playing with iPads since they were 3, playing with computers, playing with their dad's phone, and those kids, none of them in that room had ever touched one. So when you talk about access and exposure at very formative ages, these are the kind of things you talk about. You have people who come across to you and say the reason they are embedded, they are robotics engineers, they met this individual at some point, or they actually saw this on TV, or they touched it. Very little things like that. And then secondly, like I alluded to before, there's definitely a gap between employer needs and the training infrastructure and curriculum required to scale our youthful labor force. This really comes down to collaboration, planning, funding, and disciplined implementation. So I believe that there is an urgent need for linkages between curriculum design and the labor market. And that needs communication, that needs collaboration, that needs a medium to actually understand what exactly does the labor market need. Not just everybody here uses an iPad or can navigate around the phone, but when they understand these disciplines, like we talked about, the data analysts and the software engineers and the cyber tech engineers, when the universities understand that, then they can go back to craft this curriculum. And then you have the private sector come in with projects like Shell did with the ICT Center. And this center sits in there and addresses every level of that problem. It provides the infrastructure, it provides the basis for training, it provides it in an education environment, where the part of the solution included training the trainers to ensure that knowledge transfer plan ensure that whoever it is being developed out of that facility connected to the industry is suitable to be assimilated within the industry when they graduate over that duration and period of their time. And then thirdly, there is, in some areas, apart from the access and exposure, there is a shortage of, role models and mentors who you can't overemphasize the importance of in the life of young people.
Emeka, pardon me, I have to interject for a moment. We must go for a commercial break. We must go for a commercial break right now. We'll return canvas and continue shortly. Please stay with us.
In our land, it is the joy of every parent to see their children succeed.
I never wanted my story to be different. That is why I ventured into the plastic recycling business. But as I struggled to grow my business, I discovered the Shell Livewire program, and so I applied.
The winner of the Maiden Outstanding Achievement Prize for Shell Livewire's Top 10 Innovators is...
And that's how I won $10,000, including mentorship to help grow my business. Today, we have 27 employees on our payroll. I have progressed from picking plastic to creating wealth. My name is Yolo Bukamo Smith, CEO of the Rubicon Plastics Nigeria and the winner of the Maiden Outstanding Achievement Prize for Shell Livewire's Top 10 Innovators.
At Shell, we believe in empowering youths to live their dreams. That is why, along with our venture partners, NNPC, Total, and Ajib, we started Shell Livewire program in Nigeria in 2003. And since then, we've empowered over 7,000 youths and over 4,000 businesses in the Niger Delta because we care. Connect with us at shell.com.ng and on Twitter at Shell_Nigeria. Hashtag Shell Cares.
Oshari, no cry again. No cry, my pikin. Sleep, sweet, Oshari.
More mothers at Obio Community and its environs in River State cheerfully come home with their babies thanks to the Community Health Insurance Scheme at the Obio Cottage Hospital, which has helped deliver more than 27,000 babies. Meanwhile, at the Ogbia community in Bayelsa State, Shell's Oliobiri Health Program helped to revamp the Kolo General Hospital, which now caters to over 4,000 patients. These and many more are made possible by Shell, along with its joint venture partners, NNPC, Total, and Ajib, because we care. Connect with us at shell.com.ng and on Twitter at Shell_Nigeria. Hashtag Shell Cares.
And welcome back to Canvas Niger Delta Roundtable, brought to you by SPDC. I'm Dyer. Today on the show, we're discussing education ICT opportunities for Nigerian youths. My guest on the show today is Emeka Obiwulu, founder, CEO of the Offshore Lab, TOL. Emeka, you welcome back.
Thank you, Dyer.
And before we had to go for the break, you were describing or you were explaining the challenges that we have, what breaking that circuit, that connection between simply access to ICT and the revolution, digital revolution that we need to key into more. I believe you were on the third point.
Yes, yes, I was on the third point. Thank you, Dyer. So the third point I was on was the third point, not because it's the least important, it's one of the simplest points that we can actually start implementing, and that's a shortage of role model and mentors. And when you actually, we talked briefly about how a number of people can talk about the turning point in their careers being that engagement or that one chance meeting they had with an individual somewhere or the other. And when you have environments where there is no exposure to such dedicated mentorship or dedicated chance meetings, even at that demographic becomes short-changed. You know, so it's one of the simplest things to embrace to actually get on that transformation train. And it's something that sometimes requires that focused dedication to build capacity within. So even as a region, if there are mentorship vehicles that are targeted to where you have this gap and this demand in ICT, it will work towards what we want to achieve ultimately to develop that capacity amongst that young demographic. So the three areas that we decided to touch on as part of the challenges were there's access and exposure, the curriculum gap with trying to bridge the employer needs and the training infrastructure, and the lack of role models and mentors in certain demographics.
Well, let's talk about what opportunities and benefits that keying into this revolution, this digital revolution, holds in store for us. I'd like you to explain, enumerate and explain what these benefits are. You've harped particularly on the issue of it addressing unemployment and providing employment opportunities. However, some might be concerned about that because when you look at the antecedents of ICT and technology, it appears to be doing away with human beings as much as possible. For example, look at the classic case of a factory that existed the way it was in the 60s or 70s, had a lot of persons working there, compared to factories that are being automated these days. Of course, with the infusion of ICT, you have less persons there. You have computers and robots taking the place of human beings, thereby limiting the need for human manpower or a lot of persons being employed to fill positions as against before. So if we're talking about ICT providing jobs, how do you marry both cases? Because once again, it is perceived that the introduction of ICT limits greatly the need for human presence. So how does it create these jobs, and what are the other benefits we stand to gain from keying into this revolution?
Okay, so for clarity of our listeners, to respond to that in a way that's easy to follow, we will go through the ICT in conceptual terms and the ICT in practical terms. So what the market today requires, what our market today requires. If you're thinking about the places where we're thriving the most, like fintech, for instance, we have a huge population that's financially excluded, right? And in that financial exclusion, it's an industry, a huge industry has been built that's providing banking services, commercial services, lending services, insurance services, distribution services, and all of these services require people to come in and play roles, right? And in those roles that they play, none of those roles have anything to do with replacing an individual with some sort of artificial intelligence. So we have real life problems. We have 42.5% of our youthful population unemployed, and we have a market that's actually defining human roles for individuals to come in and fill. So in that context, we have those gaps that human beings can actually go in and should go in with the right skill set to fill. So in the second part of your question, yes, you have people actually say we're moving past the third industrial revolution and we're moving into the fourth industrial revolution, where it has all of the Internet of Things, virtual reality, additive manufacturing, and all of that. And when you start talking artificial intelligence and talking about that level of technology, then you start injecting this idea that there will be that movement from human beings actually doing things and having the technology actually replacing the humans doing things. And that's a secondary problem to have, because at the moment we have an existential problem with the third revolution that we're in that requires us to participate in, or we lose out to, for instance, this labor market going to different countries, experts coming in to do it. It's the world moving in the direction that we will have, Nike, for instance, building virtual canvases that they sell for $1,000. Of course it is. And it's people who will sit down and design those in the metaverse. And those people who design them, if we're not there to design them, someone else will. So we can sit in and think about all of that in that context, but it's a luxury that we cannot afford. What we need to do is to upskill ourselves to be part of that conversation and make financial remuneration and provide job security for our young people, being part of that conversation and not looking at it from the outside.
All right, join the conversation right now, if you will. If you're just joining us, it is Canvas in Niger Delta Roundtable, reaching in from Nigeria in Food here in Port Harcourt. You can call 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, or 0817-923-0007. WhatsApp is on 0809-030-6416. Once again, our topic today, education, ICT, opportunities for Nigerian youths. My guest is Emeka Obiwulu. Once again, call 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, or 0817-923-0007. Emeka, well, still with you, there are concerns as well as to some of the negative potentials, if you will, or negative impact effects of this access, unbridled, seeming unbridled access to ICT, or even keying into this digital revolution as well, with the advent or the proliferation, if you will, of internet online fraud. It's not uncommon these days to hear people say that they were having a conversation with a friend, and next thing they begin to get alerts on their phones, and monies are being deducted. They're receiving debit alerts on their phones, and they're wondering what the heck went on. I still know a couple of persons who do not operate internet banking, who don't even have an ATM card because they insist they don't want somebody to steal their money. And many would blame, the incidents or cases of young Nigerians venturing into internet fraud on this digital revolution as well. I might suppose that it's a bad thing, and even if we're going to embrace it, something we should embrace with a lot of caution. What would you say to that?
Absolutely. With a lot of caution and with a lot of responsibility. But I'll look at the flip side of it. We're still walking away or making our way out of a pandemic. And I want us to cast our minds back to where we were when we were all locked away from running away from the virus a couple of years ago, a year ago as well. And think about how we managed to share and connect with one another and share our humanities, keep ourselves safe. We had companies still running because you could meet, you could exchange money, you could pay salaries, you could collaborate, you could do a whole number of things because of digital technology, because of ICT. And if you actually try to quantify the potential or what potential outcome if we didn't have that, we could have probably have opened our doors to some part of one of the worst recessions in all of our modern time, So what ICT did for us this period that's most relevant is it supported our livelihood, it supported our existence, and it put us through this. And that's not to say everything about ICT is hunky-dory, it's all roses. Like he pointed out, there are pitfalls like there are in everything else, and anyone with great power comes great responsibility. Any client that's going to be implementing this is not implementing it in isolation. There are people who have implemented this over decades, and they had those same issues, and they found ways to actually deal with those same issues without making them completely disappear. So there's nothing unique in our own situation. What we sit down to do is learn the lessons from everyone else who has been ahead of us in this game. What are they doing differently and what are they doing rightly? And what can we apply and what lessons can we learn from there and apply in our own case? And in the places where we have uniqueness, we sit down and take ownership of the situation, accepting fully the strength of what we have, outdo the weaknesses of them. And when we have that acceptance, then we know the responsibility sits with us to find solutions to those issues. Yeah, so I agree with you. There is that level of intrusiveness. There's been, even in the developed climes, the suspicion of social media, how it influences opinion, etc. But they come along with the understanding that this has come to stay. And with that acceptance, that you're not doing away with this, it helps you focus your mind on exactly what you need to be doing, which is implementing strategies to actually limit those negative influences rather than sit in the luxury of thinking I can do away with this that actually has come to stay.
It is Canvas and Niger Delta Roundtable, once again brought to you by SPDC. We're discussing education ICT opportunities for Nigerian youths. My guest is Emeka Obiwulu. Emeka is the CEO, founder of the Offshore Lab at TOL. Join the conversation. Call 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, or 0817-923-0007 as we discuss education ICT opportunities for Nigerian youth. Once again, WhatsApp on 0809-030-6416. Speaking of WhatsApp, Chris sent this in, going, please, good evening. My name is... Okay, no, actually, Emeka sent this in. Okay, Emeka, good to hear from you. I love tech, but there are many people like us who have no access to ICT because of the cost of laptops. Now, Emeka, that takes me to my next question. So you're advocating young persons in the Niger Delta region getting on board the ICT train and being a part of this digital revolution. How are they going to do that? Just a while ago, you were talking about an experience. You narrated an experience as well where you got some volunteer or volunteers, and this person or persons had never had access to a laptop before. Now, the other persons who may have had access to a laptop, but like you also identified, simply being able to surf the net or use Facebook or TikTok or Instagram doesn't mean that you are a part of, as much a part of the digital revolution as you are describing or as we are discussing at the moment. There are persons who maybe are not even fortunate to afford a university education. There are others who may have been to a tertiary institution but are done with some degree program, and they're wondering, if I want to be a part of this revolution, do I have to go back to the university again for another 4-year program? So how exactly can Niger Delta youths who have these varying experiences which I've just described, and possibly a lot more others, how can they begin to jump on this train, key into, and be an integral part of this revolution?
Thanks, Obiwulu. So I'll give you an example of my experience with young people working in the Niger Delta with an individual called Toby Atero. Toby presented the 3D room to the project sponsors and the guests during the commissioning of the Free ICT Center. And Toby at the moment runs a startup company of his own, called it Triple P, and they try to create electrical devices that are smarter and more energy efficient, right? Toby spent 2 years learning about additive manufacturing without ever coming across or touching a 3D printer. And by the time he eventually got access to a 3D printer, Toby could not just do print out with different materials, he could actually assemble one. He was training himself with YouTube videos, he was reading books, he was consuming materials around him, and 2 days ago, he had some of his products loaded up on Jumia. So what this young man did was actually build capacity and not make excuses that I don't have access to this. He knew that there were other things he could actually develop and upskill himself on his own when there was disadvantaged clearly by his environment. But he did that and built it. And when you hear stories of people like him, you kind of see how important it is that these stories are shared, so that when people sit down and look at their situation and use it as a reason for not finding out what other things they can do to start off on this train and keep moving, so that when opportunity meets preparedness, then you propel and you excel. So I'm accepting, yes, that there are those disadvantages, and that's why we do a lot of the things we do. But that doesn't stop the individual from actually finding means to get on this revolution, finding means of skill that doesn't require them to own a laptop, to make that huge investment in it. And there are individuals like, I just use it for an example, there are a lot of individuals like that have met in my time, not just in Niger Delta, but around the country as well, who took that ownership and actually building up capacity organically with what they had around them. And as they moved on, they were able to acquire other things that they used to build their capacity even further.
Via WhatsApp also, Daniel from Rumokoro joins in going, hello, good Adayo. I'm 33 and I've developed interest in tech lately, but I'm having problems deciding which aspects to venture into. IT, software development, cybersecurity, or data science, artificial intelligence. Can your guest suggest which is better or ideal? Second, are there initiatives to support the youth who may be willing to get into tech? Once again from Daniel. So that second question, I think, has to do with support systems. Are there any support systems here in the Niger Delta? And could you address his first question as well? He's wondering what area exactly, software development, cybersecurity, data science, which is the most ideal?
So in defining the ideal situation for individuals, one has to be careful to understand where the individual's strength lies, and where the interest is. So beyond just looking at, these three things sound very interesting, where are those strengths of yours? Now, if we push that aside, and his question was, where is there the greatest demand in the market at the moment as we speak? Everyone says that data is the new oil, and that's because everyone is trying to make sense of all of the information that this digital revolution is trying to throw to us. You want to organize that information in a way that becomes profitable to your business, understand what you're doing well, what you're doing wrongly.
Hello, Emeka. Emeka, are you there? Hello?
When knowledge meets action, information liberates. How informed do you need to be to thrive in a fast-changing world?
Listen to experts only.
Keep it dial locked on 92.3 Nigeria Info for the best of news, talk, and sports 24/7.
I am listening. Are you?
Our freedom depends on our proactive responsibilities.
Let's talk, act,
and be about development.
With one voice, our potential is realized. This is your number one news, talk, and sports radio station. 92.3 Nigeria Info.
I am listening. Okay, back to the Canvas to Niger Delta Roundtable. Once again, joined by my guest, Emeka Obiwulu. Emeka, you're welcome back. Please go ahead.
All right, yes. So I was responding to our guest who asked the question. So in terms of it, the question was what the question the market's asking at the moment. The market needs a lot of data analysts. There's a huge shortage of it. We're actually competing at the moment. The Nigerian market, this ecosystem is competing with the international global village pretty much for resources. So if you employ a data analyst, a skilled data analyst, or a programmer today, he could very easily be walking out in another 2 months and working for a company in the Silicon Valley right from the comfort of his home. And that's the kind of thing we're contending with today. So the market is requesting or is actually asking questions with the level of skill for a lot of data analysts, a lot of software engineers, cyber security, like you mentioned, quite huge. But at the end of the day, where does your interest lie the most? Where do you have greatest capacity for that? Do you do any programming at all? And if you do, what level of programming and how easy can it be for you to upskill yourself organically within the resources around you? I know people who change careers from art courses to data analysts, in a period of 12 months very seamlessly, and they're working in the tech industry at the moment. So there are huge opportunities that are bound in these areas and these disciplines that you mentioned, locally and internationally as well.
We have to wrap up the conversation shortly, Emeka. But before then, you recently delivered the SNEP-coordinated ICT Center at the Federal University of Petroleum Resources, IFRO in Delta State. Very quickly, if you will, what was your experience with that?
Experience with
with that project, yes.
Yeah. So my experience with the project. So we had a project that had already been thought through, right? There are projects that I'd call them donations or palliative, and there are projects that are complete solutions. And the Software ICT Center was a complete solution, and that's why we were very excited to get on board with it. They had actually identified problems, and it was built and designed to actually solve those problems. So even though we've commissioned it, we're still on site delivering training courses, training trainers, connecting to the LMS system, and supporting to ensure that the benefits management that had actually been signed up to by the host institution were being implemented to the level required by the project sponsor. So for us, that actually is the sort of ideal project that we would want to go into. I understand that, it finds a problem, it implements a solution, and then it ensures that the benefits of that project is actually derived at the end of it over a period of time. And working with the school and working with the project sponsor, the best, most ideal environment. The school provided us all the support that we required. Isolated us from any of the issues at all that we may have typically had, took ownership of everything down to, security and managing and the site. And on the part of the project sponsor, we worked like a team, really. It wasn't at all like a client-contractor relationship. We had individuals on site pretty much working with us, and then we had the project team who... a very inspiring project team, and interestingly, we had a project lead who was female and a lead engineer as well who was female. So that really set the tone for the kind of what we actually went out to deliver there. And
all right.
For the project itself, sorry, go ahead, Daya.
All right, we do have to wrap it up right now. I wish we had more time, but that's a wrap on today's edition of Canvas to Niger Delta Roundtable. We did discuss education, ICT, opportunities for Nigerian youths. My guest has been Emeka Obiwulu, amongst other things, is the founder and CEO of the Offshore Lab, TOL. Emeka, many thanks for your time and wish you and your team the very best.
Thank you very much, Tyra.
And that's a wrap once again on today's edition of the show. We'd like to get your feedback via social media on Twitter at Canvas on Air, on Facebook Canvas on Air. Remember, there are enormous opportunities in the ICT sector. Join this digital revolution right now. It holds enormous opportunities, and you can do it even all by yourself. A fresh edition of the show comes your way again next week, Wednesday, between 4 and 5 p.m. Many thanks for listening. I'm Adid Dayo in Lushakin. Good evening.